A top United States intelligence official has a grim outlook on North Korea's nuclear program. I talked to National Intelligence Director James Clapper yesterday at the Council on Foreign Relations. We discussed challenges the next president will face in handling the isolated nation.
I think the notion of getting the North Koreans to denuclearize is probably a lost cause. They are not going to do that. That is their ticket to survival.
Adriana Diaz recently traveled to North Korea's capital city, Pyongyang. She saw how the international sanctions have affected the country. Adriana, good morning.
Good morning. We spoke to a government advisor about topics ranging from the U.S. election to how the sanctions target their nuclear program. They're making an effort to open up to the American media, but they only took us to places they wanted us to see, so we didn't get a full picture of life behind the curtain. Though what we did encounter surprised us. The streets of Pyongyang are busier than ever. Roads that used to be carless now flow with traffic. Stoplights are still rare, so patriotic traffic cops maintain order. As we were driven around, we saw a whole neighborhood on the rise and a skyline dotted with cranes. North Korea's economy shrank last year, but this looks like a place that's expanding, not a country crippled by sanctions. The purpose of the sanctions is to squash us, but we cannot surrender, said this man. We have to defend our lives and our nuclear program. That nuclear program is why in March, the UN imposed their harshest restrictions against North Korea in decades. The result? Yet another nuclear test in September, the fifth so far. Economist Ri Ki-song helps advise policy. He was selected by the government for our interview. Were the sanctions simply ineffective? We have abundant natural resources that can be used for nuclear technology, he said, and it's the nuclear threats made by the U.S. that caused all this. Do you think Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump is more likely to improve relations? The question is whether a new president is willing to abandon hostile policies, he told us. Your presidents all sanction us, and we just grow stronger. It's a claim they want us to believe. But the average person here earns just over $1,000 a year, less than half what they made in the 1980s. They're staying afloat thanks to China and its appetite for commodities like coal. China bought 60% more coal from North Korea in August than in April when the sanctions took effect. They're taking advantage of a humanitarian exemption in the law. It's that loophole Secretary of State John Kerry wants to close.
It's obviously being abused. Why is it being abused? Because the greatest amount of coal and the greatest amount of revenue historically has just passed between China and North Korea.
China would have to sign on to any new UN sanctions. They oppose North Korea's nuclear program, but have so far been unwilling to go as far as Western powers want. They fear an economic collapse could send millions of refugees across the border and possibly U.S. troops now based in South Korea also to their doorstep.
What do they know about what's happening here in the United States in the election?
Well, the government officials seem plugged in. They're following it, and they're hoping that the new president can reset relations. But locals had actually never heard of Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton, probably one of the few places in the world that's been isolated from what's happening here.
Wow.
But what they did say is they hope that the new president will work for them as long as it's not someone like Obama or President Bush.
All right. Thank you, Adriana.
Thank you.
Nice to see you in the States.
Yes, thank you.
Yes.